Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Yearning. Yearning is a cliff tea from the Wuyi Mountains. We're set up a little bit differently this morning, and I want to go through that with you. Frequently, or every so often, I should say, Chinese Tea Elite watch this program. And one of the things they requested when we were in China is could they see more of the shop, or could they see different angle of the shop? So what we decided to do is do half the program from here and then half the program in the angle that you're normally used to seeing. So, Biju,
Yes,
myself,
John Brown.
thank you, and Yearning. So what is yearning? Well, on several different levels, I could answer that question, but I better confine myself to what I'm supposed to do because A, I'm not wearing linen today, so who knows what's going to happen. And B, that's too philosophical for me to go into any other yearning that's not cliff tea yearning. Yearning is a special cliff tea that comes from within the mountain. Now, we've talked about culture and customs over the last two sessions through Ghostly and Unicorn. I'm going to pick up that thread once again because I want to talk first a little before I get deep into yearning. I want to talk first a little bit about Confucianism and this tea and the Wuyi Mountains. So those of you, which should probably be all of you, who don't really know the name Jushi, don't know that he's the most famous Neo-Confucianist. And he lived between about 1100 and 1200. And he spent most of his time in the Wuyi Mountains. He was the first person in recorded history to talk about the trip down the Nine Bend River. And he talked about the teas in the area, and he talked about feng shui. This is really how he ended up in the Wuyi Mountains. So feng shui, or geomancy, is this system whereby the Chinese, in their traditions, in their historic or ancient traditions, decided if you were positioned a certain way vis-a-vis nature or vis-a-vis items of nature, your life would be a certain way. You could encourage certain very good things to happen, like getting rich or being healthy, if you positioned yourself in the right way. He lived in the Wuyi Mountains for many, many years. And remember, I told you the Confucianists, Taoists, and the Buddhists all got along. And one of the reasons is, and he had a school, by the way, a Confucian school in the Wuyi Mountains. But was his school stiff and formal? From all the information that we can understand, it was not. He was much more relaxed. And there is the thought, of course, I've never interviewed him, but there is the thought that he was influenced by the fabulous feng shui, fabulous appearance of the Wuyi Mountain, just the nature of the Wuyi Mountains. Because, first off, and I felt this every time that I've gone there, you do feel the spectacular nature of the place. So for those of you who need a comparison, when you go to Yosemite, many times, especially as you're looking up at Half Dome or you're climbing Half Dome, it's like, oh my God, I'm on top of the world, literally on top of the world. Wuyi Mountains, though the scenery is different, gives you that same sort of feeling. And so that's why I think that all three philosophies could live in harmony, because they could all find something through nature and bring their own thoughts about the relationship of man to nature or what they were doing in nature, and they all had things to talk about. And they weren't fighting. And as I mentioned before, this is one of the only places where you had the three philosophical traditions all together in a peaceful mode. And by the way, as you go down the Nine Bend River in the Wuyi Mountains, he actually, who's the he? Jushi actually wrote on the mountains something about the feng shui of the mountains. So he was really, really in love with that area. And part of it was the scenery. He also talked about the tea. He said, and remember, although he had the privilege to drink many different varietals of the tea, none of it was made in the Wuyi style, was it? It was all made, that is in the Oolong style. It was all made as green tea. So he experienced the rock rhythm, but not as strongly as you are experiencing it in the cliff teas. So that was one thing I wanted to share with you, because as we go through this whole series, I want to keep opening up the whole scenario of what the Wuyi, and that's from a historical, from a geographical, and from a current day point of view. What are the Wuyi Mountains about? So, and certainly the tea is right at the top of the list. Whether you lived 1,000 years ago or you live today, whether you're drinking it as green tea or drinking it as oolong tea, it was very special. So let's get into yearning and let's get into the cliff teas. Let's quickly remind ourselves of the process. There's 25 to 30 steps. I'm not going to go through 25 to 30 steps, but I'm going to tell you the great big processes again. And especially at the front end, what the significance of those processes. Well, you pick the tea. Okay, everybody knows you can't have tea unless you pick it. Yes, that is the significance. But there's a little bit more than that. Because how you pick, right? You pick a bud and one leaf, you pick a bud and two leaves, you can pick a bud and three leaves. So there's a decision to be made. And usually that decision is driven by lineage, that is the farmer's lineage, by historical precedence with the particular varietal. Occasionally, a farmer will go off script, but for the most part, they, over the years, have pretty much established, well, this lineage is pretty darn good if I get two leaves, a bud and two leaves. So they make their decision at that point, and that is a very critical decision right off the bat. Then they bring it in. Now let's see, after you picked and you take it from the fields and take it back to the farm where you're going to process it, what again is the first step? Oh yeah, you have to take water out of the leaves. So the farmer's attempt, and we call this withering, right? The farmer's attempt, the first time around, going through the withering process, is to eventually reduce the moisture in the leaf by at least 30%. Some farmers, oh no, I want that full 40 to 50%. So there's some number that they're searching for. Now I ask you this. When they're searching for that number, are they using these modern scientific tools? And we've got lots of modern scientific tools to tell you how much moisture is already been withdrawn. No, they know by feel. They know by smell. So the value of doing it over and over again and having it through a lineage, it's like grandma's cookies. You know, grandma says to you, oh, these 6 things, you know, butter, flour, baking soda, salt, whatever else, 325, 8 minutes. So you do all that stuff, 8 minutes, what happens? Grandma, they're not as good as yours. Of course they're not as good, because there's things that grandma knows as she's handling the flour. Well, the weather conditions are inclement today. It's a little damp. I better put a little more or a little less flour. Grandma knows this stuff through experience. The farmers know this stuff through experience. That's why it's hard to be a new farmer. And that's why it's doubly hard to imagine, as one of our customers did 8 or 9 years ago, when he said to me, he's a scientist. I love scientists because they use big words. I love using big words. He said, okay, all you have to do, John, and this was during a class, it was great. All you have to do in order for me to grow and make scarlet roll is tell me the pH of the soil, tell me the constituents of the soil, and I'll take care of the rest. Needless to say, in front, this is back when we used to have class in here. In front of the whole class, we had a discussion. And he insisted that he could do this. The answer is no. I'll shortcut this discussion. You cannot do that because there's so much about history of how to process and an intuitive feel how to process. And even more than that, remember, I've told you, is it on the north side of the mountain? Is it on the south side of the mountain? Is it on the eastern side of the mountain? How do you know that with your weather conditions, it's really ready to pick? The farmers know. They just walk through, oh, this river. You do this side. Can't do that here. And nobody else does that anywhere else except in the Wuyi Mountains. Now, does that mean Wulong tea isn't made in other places? No. I don't mean to suggest that, but it means that cliff tea is not made in any other places. It's only made, no matter what anybody says on the outside, it's only made in the Wuyi Mountains. And there's a reason, and it has to do with the environment. So you pick, you get it back, you wither, you want at least 30% out. What's the value of withering again? I said it was so that you could handle the leaves without, them falling apart, roll them and do all those things. That's part of it. Let's get to a part that's not usually discussed. And that is, remember, there's a bud and say 2 leaves. Most frequently it's a bud and 2 leaves. That bud and those leaves have a stem to them, don't they? When you wither, that stem is separated from the bush, right? So your communication with home base already gone. Not your communication, but the leaves communication. So what happens during the withering stuff? The low boiling point volatiles, see, I got a little science in there. They leave the leaf, they leave the stem and go into the leaf during the withering process. Are you withering if you're in the Wuyi Mountains? In the sunlight or indoors? By and large, you're doing it in the sun. If it's raining, there is no sunlight, so you're doing it indoors. And recently, agricultural scientists have worked on the problem. Can you use LED lights to wither the tea? And if so, what equivalency is there to doing it outside? And what differences occur doing that outside? So they're doing studies on this right now. And again, when we were in Anhui and Hefei at the Agricultural University, they've got machines called electric tongues and electric noses and so on. It's really cool. You walk through these, oh yeah, this machine is tasting. What? Oh, that's electronic tongue. Oh, okay. And really, these are fancy terms for they're able to parse out elements when you compare side by side sun withered versus LED withered. And there is a difference. The flavor is not exactly the same. The density in your mouth, the mouthfeel is not exactly the same. So inherently, not intuitively, I think over the years we've already understood this. And we've understood it because the farmers talk they don't talk about electronic tons, but they talk about, well, what's the difference if I have to wither it indoors versus outdoors? And there is a difference. And so we've learned to pay attention to those type of differences. All right, so that's the withering step. After withering, and remember, I'm shortcutting a lot of things because there's a lot of micro steps in between. And there's withering that's repeated, there's all that stuff. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know that. It's not helpful. But what is helpful is the next big step, which they call making the green. Oh, I love this title. So making the green. Does this mean they go back to the woodshed and get green paint, paint up the leaves? Oh, horrors. No, that's not what it means. What it means is they start to break down the leaves. How do you break down? You break down by shaking. And when you shake, what you're trying to do, you're trying to bruise the leaves. And if you're any good, and remember, I'm no good, so I'll tell you that up front. When I try and do this, the leaves end up all over the floor. And the farmers are so aware of this that they know ahead of time when we're coming. Well, let's get out some bad leaves. Let's lay them out here, and then he can practice with those. These guys are so good, they shake this stuff up and down. It all stays where it's supposed to stay. It lands on the edges. The objective is to land on the edge. They want to redden the edge. Redden? I thought you said we're doing green. What that really means is to bruise the edge so that it starts to oxidize. The making the green is a misnomer from a Western point of view, and yet there's no other way to really translate it. So, you can't say inventing the green. None of those translations work, but that's what's really going on. You're getting the process started of oxidation. So you oxidize for however long you're going to oxidize. That's the next step. And as a farmer, do you go to your Betty Crocker page, oxidation? Oh yeah, 3 hours? No, you don't. You do it again by smell. You do it again by feel. If you were walking through a farm with us, you'd be surprised because we get up, we go through the farm, and the farmers, we're doing essentially what the farmers do. We're not as good. Well, she's as good, but I'm not as good. I reach into the pile of leaves, smell it. Yeah, I can smell it. Could I smell that it's exactly done? I'm not sure I could. So that's the next step. After it's oxidized, you got to do something. You got to do something to stop the oxidation because you don't want it to over-oxidize. What is over-oxidation? Nobody knows except the farmer and you, the end user. What do I mean by that? Again, the farmer doesn't have assigned what you and I like, a recipe, X amount of minutes. No, it's you stop it when it's a temperature thing. You stop oxidation, you start to stop it completely at 150 degrees, but that's not where they go. They go to somewhere between 300 and 400 degrees, and every farmer is a little different, and they're aiming for something a little different. And that's natural, right? Because they follow the recipe, the lineage recipe. So that's the next step. All of these steps are equally critical. And if you make a big mistake in any of the steps, you're messed up for all the rest of the steps. It's really hard to go back. Oh, I kind of under-oxidized this. What can I do? Not a lot. And that's why you have to be really good at what you're doing right out of the gate. And that's why the master farmer supervises. They know how to do all the steps. They did them as apprentices. But you know what? They don't want their crop ready. Once they're in charge, it's, hey, what is this? You didn't oxidize, or you're about to not oxidize this. No, it's not ready. So there's always a master on site for each of these steps. And it's really, really important because they're the people who are going to set the standard, the end standard, the standard that you enjoy. They know what that end product is supposed to look like, and they know how to get there, and they know how to get there without sinking the problem and labor. So after you stop the oxidation, then you come to this very important step of you're going to shape. You're going to roll and shape. So what are you doing again when you roll and shape? Well, yeah, there's an aesthetic to that, right? Because when you roll and shape, yeah, you like your leaves to look a certain way. And by the way, you may think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding at all. Taiwan has an aesthetic for Oolong tea. Their aesthetic is they want a ball. The Wuyi Mountain aesthetic is, are you kidding me? I don't want a ball. I want the dragon. I want it to be a dragon shape, a dragon strip. So each region has a slightly different aesthetic. In addition to aesthetic, is there anything else that is derived after you roll the tea? Well, absolutely there is, because you bring up other volatiles that are still in the leaf and get them to the surface. And this is going to be very important because once you get them to the surface, how do they stay on the surface? You bake them dry into the leaf. And that's why when you get 15, you can't use 175. Well, you can do anything you want. But if you want that full flavor, if you do 175 degrees, oh, okay, I'll do 150. Will that full flavor appear? And the answer is absolutely not. Impossible to appear. But what if I expand the time? Impossible to appear. It needs that high heat. And you'll see in a minute when the tea master demonstrates. Remember when she demonstrates this stuff? You know, she always gets the pot itself hot, or the container that's going to brew the tea. It's always hot, right? But then she's not finished. She does something else. She gets the outside hot. Is she finished yet? No. She puts the leaves in. The pot's clean, by the way, clean and heated. She puts the tea leaves in, smells them. Yeah, this is the right tea. This is yearning. Puts the 200-degree water on, seals it up, that is, puts the top on. And then, what does she do? She adds 200-degree water over the top. That is so that the leaves have as long a chance, as close to 200 degrees as possible to express and blossom and make the beautiful tea that you enjoy. So I really shortcutted the steps there. I talked about the 6 or 7 big steps, and I haven't even talked about, and in fact, let me talk about this right now. Let's see how am I doing. Oh, I haven't over talked yet. I'm about to, but I haven't over talked yet. So when you bake, there's a couple different ways to bake. They have a machine that rotates. You can put it in and rotates at high heat. You can bake it like that. And, you know, that's kind of the microwave doing Wuyi tea. I know, I'm getting there. I just compared the other to a microwave. Now, she reminded me that when they're doing it the traditional way, which is where I was going, they have a pit, and in that pit they have charcoal. They get that charcoal going, and oh yes, where are the ashes? They have ash so that the ashes cover the charcoal to control the temperature, and then they put the tea on top of that, and it bakes that way. And actually, there's a, you know, of course, I didn't say that correctly. You put the bamboo basket with the tea in it, that's what I should have said, and cover it up and it bakes. Yeah. Of course, but not in the traditional. In the traditional, they know what that temperature is. In the modern day, she's absolutely right. Some of the farmers control everything by temp. Exactly, an exact temperature. As science gets more involved with tea production, you get more of these things introduced. But the traditional farmers aren't looking at those. The traditional farmers are smelling and they're looking at the leaves themselves. They know. Those that have done this for 50 years, they absolutely know. They don't need the younger farmers, of course. They are, it's like youngsters here. I have iPhone to tell me exactly what the weather is. Oh yeah, it is that way. So those are the basic processes. Why does it take so long? Because they go through several iterations of almost all of those processes, particularly the in-baking process. The in-baking process, at a minimum, is 2 months. Usually it's 3, sometimes maybe 4 months. And when the tea is finished, which is usually September, sometimes as late as October, usually, except for the tea that we do here, they let it rest a little bit longer because tea fresh out of the final baking is usually really, really strong, really aggressive. And if you let it rest until Chinese New Year's, which is usually 2 or 3 months, then that wears off and you have a more pleasant, let's see, let me not say more pleasant, a less aggressive taste. Some people like that in your face taste. Most people who aren't used to cliff teas may not like them, but they love it when it moves them. So, all right, we're going to do a switch here. And this was the opening again, so you get a different sense of the shop, a different sense of presentation. We're going to turn the camera around and do our normal presentation. Brewing, first demonstrating, and then doing an actual brew with you, and then we'll go through that both situations. So
Okay.
you go ahead.
We can see each other. Okay.
Yeah. It's a commercial break. Would you all be okay if I started doing commercials? Just kidding. Go ahead.
So John, how taught you, the people. This is very important. So warming part first, and then put the leaves, cover, shaking 1, 2, 3, shaking after, I use the the heat water, into the pot, and after one more step, number 4. So don't forget. So heat water on the outside on the teapot. So John's really good. The why? I tell you, inside, outside, temperature same. This called standards. Leaves are so happy. So it's really. So you try. It's totally different. The way you made it, the flavors. So okay. So this time, so this is 7 grams, This is the Wuyi tea. It's high quality. So watching me, everybody. Let's start.
示范10秒。
示范10秒. This is 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So this is my style. The in tea we factory in China, in Fujian. So this look at the size, This is larger than this one. Why I use it? It's keep it hot heat, so I can transfer So yeah.
Yes,
So
so, part of what Bijou just said was something about happy leaves. And really what she means is the leaves express at their fullest when
Yeah.
they have that 200 degrees both on top and inside.
this is cold right now, cold. Okay, this rubber, this technique, so also always outside, inside. Don't cover this whole. Oh, okay. Always. I know it's hot. Thinking, and I played right now. So my, you can see my children so happy. Okay. Yeah. So why I put in the glass? I check it. It's clean inside. Still have a loose leaf, very clean. I'm really happy. I can go into next steps. Hot, in or is hot. Okay, cover, keeping the warm. So茶针 needle, 茶针 very important. 茶海. So also, two hands working. So yeah, so still not over. Okay, this is the keep it hot warming. Okay.
So all she's doing, go ahead.
This is not similar YouTuber in outside. No, it's really in the tradition for seeking in our temperature is same. Oh wow. Let's see the look at smell. Hot. Yeah. So I know that. So temperature hot.
So one of the things I want to point out to you is this Chajun and Changhai. Why do we use this? We use this so that our fingers, which may have lotion or perfume, don't touch the leaves. This way, it's really a good tool to brew or handle the tea without actually using your hands.
So the tea master, when they work in, the tea factory, they don't touch loose leaf. Never. We have the one person behind them. He or she prepare everything. I'm standing here. I brew the tea. I don't touch it. Use it. This is very important. So technique all in no power, no high, no low. Okay, same, yeah. Speed, okay. I'm not high, I'm not low. Okay. So, okay. So, one more. This also, I hope my teeth. Yeah.
Good. And you set the timer, which I already did. And then you let it steep. You prepare the recipient cup. And so Oolong tea, especially the cliff teas, is a different rhythm than the other teas because it is so hot. It's even a different rhythm than permanent tea. Permanent tea is made at the same temperature, 200 degrees, but you don't pour the water on the outside. And fermented tea isn't covered while you're making. This one is absolutely covered. And this one, you really are doing everything in your power to get those volatiles, which were baked on, out into the tea itself. So that's the purpose of keeping it hot like this. Also, when you drink this tea, you drink this and a rhythm. And that rhythm is different than the rhythm from the other teas, because again, it's so hot, you can only do an inhalation at the beginning. And you can kind of paint the framework at the beginning. And then as it cools down, you fill in the spaces. That's kind of how to think about cliff teas as opposed to other teas. Are other Wulongs treated the same? They are, because all Wulongs, to get the best flavor, need higher heat. Are the Canton or Guangdong Wulongs, do they need that same heat? They do, because remember, they're done in the strip manner. They're rolled, I should say, in the strip manner. And their methodology is very close, though not exact, not exactly the same as the Wuyi Mountains. How about the Taiwanese teas? Their whole process is done in about 30 hours. So they still need that high heat because the principle is the same. They're semi-oxidized, but it's a whole different way of putting it together. And this applies also for the Southern Fujian Wulongs. So Southern Fujian Wulongs and the Taiwanese Wulongs are very close. So the Wulongs from Anxi, for example, the Iron Goddess Light, the Iron Goddess Roasted, they are done in a similar, though there is a difference, because the Taiwanese light roast, light bake. The Anxi is light roast, heavy bake. So you do have some differences in terms of how the teas are processed. But again, when you think of something that takes 7 months versus 30 hours, there's a big difference. Yeah,
I have a question.
yeah.
At one of the recent sessions, I think it was Ghostly, I made an awful mistake.
Mm,
I thought my teapot was at 200
yeah,
and it wasn't.
yes,
It was 170 or something.
Right.
So I poured over, and as soon as I pour the tea out, I see my error. What was interesting, the taste, it gave me some floralness I might not have gotten. And I knew there's
Yep.
no coming back from that error.
right.
How would it affect the second? Did I wreck the second?
Well, instead of using the word wreck, the second
Alter.
pour is not going to be what it would have been. But you can still get a second pour and it'll just be different. And
That's
so,
what it was, yeah.
you will not have lost everything. So the timer went off. Tea master separating the tea leaves from the tea water. It is really
Yeah.
cool. Okay, it's Sophie's pour. All right, so this is the color that yours should approximately be when you actually brew. So right away, even without attempting to smell, the aroma of this is huge. And the aroma from the leaves is huge. I smelt it right away. So let's enter the quality arena. So what do we do in the quality arena? We take an inhalation, it's 200 degrees. What we're trying to do is determine astringency in the mouth, where it is. And it's going to be different for everybody. We want aftertaste, if we can identify it, and then we want energetics. So you're not doing this, I'm doing this. You'll do yours in a minute. So again, you let it swirl around in your mouth a little bit. And that gives you a little bit of a sense of, starts to give you a sense of where it's going to be astringent in the mouth, what the aftertaste might be. Usually takes a little bit longer to get the energetics, but by about the third sip or so, you'll start to feel energetics. You may start to feel, everybody is a little different. I'm going to take a second sip. I'm looking for both astringency and energetics. And on the second sip, I'm looking for, I'm starting the taste analysis. What am I starting to taste? I'm starting the aroma analysis. And I'm taking notes, as all of you should be when you do yours, because remember, this is the third one. We did Ghostly, Unicorn, and Yearning. And in the next 3 weeks, we have another set of Cliff Teas, Huntress, Harbinger, and Placid. So this whole set is different. And each of these will give you a different response in your mouth. So it's your turn to brew.
So I say the first steps, one, warming. Second is inside. Third, leaves putting in. Four, water. And five, water in outside. So 5 steps. So in all, glass water. Oh, this is very important. So right now it's really good.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
You know, this technique, 1, 2, 练了 right? 2,
And watch the rhythm,
3,
the tea master. And don't talk over her rhythm. So all of you will have your own individual rhythm. What's important is once you like your rhythm, that's it. You stick with it. That is your rhythm each time. And that's really important because you want a consistent result. You don't want a bad mood rhythm. You don't want an exuberant mood rhythm unless that's your mood all the time.
only this space, okay? 4, 5,
So people have asked me after this trip, what is the harvest like in Wuyi Mountains? In other words, is the tea going to be good this year? And it's really hard to tell at this date, and I'll tell you why. Because realistically, they start picking in early April. Usually around the 6th or so. And then they pick continuously through the 19th. Usually there's rain somewhere in that period and they don't pick during rainy days. And then they do a scattered finish picking all the way by around May 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. So they're just coming to the conclusion. And so what they do is they stabilize the tea. It's an amazing operation. Tea comes in one morning, they go through those 6 basic steps that I talked about, and then they do what they call a stabilization baking. And the stabilization baking, they label, and they have all these racks. Okay, this came in on this day, and it's this much, and it's this particular varietal, and it's from this side of the mountain. All of these particulars, because each of the particulars to the farmer makes a difference. And then at the conclusion of usually around 24 hours, they finish that stabilization. It's 24, 25, 26. And right away, more tea is coming in. They go through the same process. So day by day, except when it rains, they're working. And it's a 24/7 unless it's raining. If it's raining, it depends on the nature of the rain. If it's hard rain, there's not a lot you can do. If it's raining for an hour, then everything is pushed back an hour, or everything is delayed an hour and things are moved around. If stuff was outside, you get it inside, all of that stuff. And then at the conclusion of an hour, you get it back outside. So that's how much pressure they're under during the picking season. And the picking season is usually about 30 days. And so it's 30 days of essentially very little sleep. You're sleeping in shifts. And if there's an emergency, you're up regardless. So it's really hard. And, you know, sometimes you think, well, let's see, they only pick this thing once. And they're making all this money, an easy life. And the answer would be not exactly. The easy part of the life, if there is an easy part of the life, is in December. When winter comes, when real winter comes, then there's nothing to do. Truly nothing to do. And by the way, for the pickers, okay, let me give you a full picture because I realize the way I said this was wrong. I'm talking about the farmer when I'm talking about the pace of his life. For the pickers, you come usually from other places, you're experienced, you pick. If you pass muster, you have to pass muster every year, then you're invited the next year, you're sent home at the end of the pick. You do not participate in the actual processing of the tea. So your work is 30 days. And then you're sent back home. And so it's mostly women, not entirely, but it's mostly women, and it's mostly women from nearby villages. Sometimes it's a little bit farther away, who've done this over the years. Because again, it sounds easy. A leaf and two buds. How could that go wrong? 1 + 2. Well, there's a lot of ways it could go wrong. So they want experienced pickers because they pick fast and they pick accurately. Your timer has gone off. Not in a hurry, just that steady rhythm. Beautiful tea. Yours should look somewhat like this. So it's your turn now to go through an evaluation of this tea. So enter the tea quality arena. And while you're doing that, let me tell you one of the fun things that happened at the shop this week. We have a customer, Rob, who made some fabulous bread and other goodies over this last week as he's been experimenting with his baking skills. And we've received the benefit of it. It's just been fabulous. The other thing about that is, as Rob describes all the steps to baking, because he's gotten down in the weeds for baking. I mean, he is really precise. And at the end of the day, to do many of what many of the goodies that he's doing, it takes 20, 25 steps. And as he was describing it, this wasn't this Wednesday, it was a week ago Wednesday. As he was describing it, there were several tea friends here. And I turned to one and I said, this is exactly like tea, because it's exactly like how the farmers think about tea at that level of detail.
Speaking of Rob,
Ah,
comments, the scent of the tea water leads with dried plum sweetness and hints of honey and orange zest, but hidden in the background is buttered popcorn sweetness.
oh, I love this. Dried plum sweetness and hidden, and this is the dried leaf,
Mhm.
and hidden in the background
Oh, the tea water.
in the tea water, I'm sorry, is a buttery popcorn
Yes.
sweetness. Let's dissect that for a minute. Chinese would immediately understand the dried plum sweetness without question. They wouldn't have launched towards the buttery popcorn. They'd have said another word which was equivalent to that. So I love the fact we're using Western terms, but they're matching up with equivalencies of how the Chinese would evaluate that. Great evaluation. So as you're thinking about this, a couple other things to consider. One is some of the cliff teas will wipe you out with minerality. And right away, you're thinking, oh, I'm in for a battle. So that's one of the things to think about in relationship to this, whether that's the case. And by the way, while you're all thinking, let me give you further thinking in the shop. So we have gotten a shipment in, we have another shipment on the way. Clearly, this next shipment is going to have some sort of additional weight to it. And so everything is going to be less this year in terms of what we bring in, a lot less of what we bring in, because we're just trying to kind of ride out this period until things come to a different state of being in terms of the tea. I do want to thank Peter. Peter sent me some information about an organization that's trying to lobby for an exception, not for tea yet, but for Chinese herbals. And we're trying to see if we can't get them to, I'm trying to see if we can't get them to include tea in that exception. We'll see. Yeah.
Again, speaking of Peter, there's something lively in this tea that galloped forth before I had a complete first, I think, taste, a mouth-watering minerality. I find the tea crisp.
Ah, love the ending point of this comment. I find the tea crisp. And so part of how the Chinese, they use another word, but it means the same thing. They use the word lively. This tea is lively or crisp. Love that description. And I also love the description that you got the minerality, but before you got to the end of the comment, you didn't say the minerality overwhelmed everything, because it doesn't. But instead, it matches up with the rest of it and gives you that lively flavor. Great catch on it.
I find what's left after the first sip is a very, very nice mouthfeel and a kind of opening of the sweet, a more gentle sweetness that just remains.
Oh, that's very interesting. Kay comments on the mouthfeel at the opening sip. And what's remarkable to her is at the end, there is a sweetness which remains. And it's not, it doesn't overwhelm anything. It just sits in there as a very nice flavor.
Rob says it feels wet on my tongue at the start of the sip, then thick at the end. And so I feel insulated from the astringency.
Oh, that is, what a what a fabulous comment. Rob comments, wet on the tongue and thick at the end, so therefore it covers up any astringency that there might have been. And I would extrapolate that from that one more thing. And that is because Rob also talked about thickness. That suggests a mellowness out of this. This isn't one where you're left thinking, oh my God, am I going to be able to drink this thing? This doesn't treat you that way at all. And it kind of leaves you yearning for more.
Peter adds, this could be me and my state today, but I find the tea meeting me even before I try to meet it, more than the other two cliff teas. Therefore, it's easy to meet.
Oh, wow. I love the direction of this comment. So Peter comments that Ghostly and Unicorn, you kind of had to go searching for them and really probe to get what was going on. Yearning, not so much. Yearning came to him, met him. And I like this comment because both Rob's last comment and this comment are really talking about this thing is attractive. And Kay's comment about, hey, it leaves a sweetness in the mouth. It lingers in the mouth. That sounds pretty attractive to me. I mean, I would have a yearning for this.
Rob says, in this case, the tea steeps the drinker.
In this case, as Rob puts it, the tea steeps the drinker. Nobody said that to me. I like that. Yeah, that's well said.
And Jeannie has, I'm getting energetics of soothing calmness. Which
I like this comment. Both Jeannie and Kay note that they're soothing energetics, calming energetics. When's the last time you had a cliff tea and you said soothing and calming? You don't get that very often. Usually it's a little bit more stimulative, but this is both soothing and calming. And very different than Ghostly and Unicorn.
And Jen says, I've made this one a couple of times already this week, and I find it such a pleasant way to wrap up a day. It's lovely to find a nice way to begin the day as well.
So Jen kind of wraps this in a gift package because she says, this is a great tea to conclude the week. And implied in this package is because it touches all the bases. And with the calming and the soothing, did I miss anything out of
No.
hers? Okay, calming and soothing. This is complete. And it's a really easy and excellent 15.
But I'd say it's not bland or one note.
Oh no.
It just, like with the sweetness to
Yep.
start with, and now I'm getting more minerality. It comes in waves or undulates.
I like that. K notes it undulates in terms of the things it presents to you. You aren't single noted in this tea. You get a little sweetness, then you get some minerality, then you get a little roast. You get all of these parts of this tea, and yet none of them overwhelm the other. As usual, when I'm in the presence of your greatnesses, this means I don't have to do anything. I can just be a regular understudy and virtually do nothing. Your commentaries were all really spot on. Love your appreciation of this tea. Next week, we have another tea.
There's one more
one more comment? Okay.
from Rob that says he's getting a buzz from the tea that was unexpected.
Ah, okay. And so Rob is getting a buzz from the tea.
At about halfway down the cup.
Halfway down the cup. So One of the things about these teas is if you drink them fast enough, because as soon as you said a buzz, oh, you must be at least halfway down the cup, and you are halfway down the cup. That's a result, partially a result of the speed that you're able to consume. Yeah, I understand buzz, because when I consume these things, I get a buzz too. So to close it up, we've all ended on this yearning note. What could be a little different? Maybe if next week we met a huntress, which indeed we're going to. Huntress, Harbinger, and Placid are the next set. Your responsibilities this week, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.